What is up, YouTube? We are here for our Week 4 NFL prediction podcast, guys. Coming off a great Week 3 with another slew of upsets. This looks like a great week as well. So let's get right into the video. Hope you guys enjoy. So, Alex, we are back here for Week 4 after a pretty eventful Week 3 with some upset games. Obviously, the Panthers winning, the Giants winning, the Commanders beating the Bengals there. Some the Niners losing to the Lions. Which it was basically the battle of which team had a stronger injured reserve set of players. But crazy week, or I mean, what do you takeaways? What do you think after that? That was crazy. Another crazy week.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a roller coaster of emotions to say the least. I mean, you had teams like the Vikings go to 3-0, the Packers go to 2-1. You saw the Giants beat the Browns. I mean, Deshaun Watson's terrible. I can't tell what's worse, the way he's playing or the way he's in court right now. So it's been really bad for him. The Steelers are 3-0, Seattle's 3-0. Miami lost another quarterback. Skylar Thompson got hurt in that loss to Seattle. Um, Buffalo manhandled Jacksonville. Jaden Daniels is the real deal for the Commanders,
Yeah.
Really beating up in that great shootout win for Washington over Cincinnati. I tell you, that Sunday night football game was excellent between the Chiefs and Falcons. And it was that Chiefs defense holding on at the final moment in the final minutes to prevent another potential game-winning drive from Kirk Cousins.
That was a horrendous fourth down play.
Oh, I know. Look, I mean, again, it was a great drive for Atlanta. They caught some breaks because of 3 Chiefs defensive penalties, but they blew it, like you said, with that terrible play call on 4th and short. It was at the 15-yard line, I believe, in KC territory. Regardless, they blew it, and the Chiefs survived in Atlanta in what was a great game. So you saw lots of great matchups throughout the entire week where teams are winning, teams are still undefeated, and you got lots of teams who are 0-3, and they're really scratching their heads because you look at Jacksonville and Cincinnati, they both lose in bad fashion on Monday Night Football. Jacksonville looked horrific. The Bengals blew that game. And you got Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence making $55 million a season, including this year, and they haven't won a game so far this year.
At least Joe Burrow showed up. Trevor Lawrence is getting that much money, and he's got a stadium named after him, which just looks so idiotic. It looks so stupid now. The fact that that's like the Giants giving Daniel Jones his own stadium name. It's just, yeah.
Well, I mean, at this point, MetLife Stadium, Jones Stadium, both places suck. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you saw a great week of football. And let's not forget, Jason, last Thursday, that's when it started, of course. And we saw vintage Aaron Rodgers played a great game. The Jets beat the Patriots 24-3. Rodgers had over 280 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. That was vintage Aaron. That was the Jets playing really good football, and they won by 3 scores. And honestly, I mean, if Miami's banged up, which they are with now 2 quarterbacks being hurt, the Patriots still in that, very weird limbo stage where they're somewhat competitive but not good enough, that division will come down to the Jets and the Bills.
Yep.
And right now the Jets are only 1 game behind Buffalo for first place. So you see those 2 matchups later on in the season, that could be the difference in not just, who wins that division, but that could be a massive difference in who is able to have a massive shift in momentum against the likes of Kansas City and Houston when it comes to seeding and postseason berths and all of that later down the road. Now, there's plenty of time for that, but this could be a division that is really, really close between 2 high-flying offenses with Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen, and on top of the fact, their defenses are pretty good as well so far this year.
Yep. Yeah, completely agree. The other one I want to touch on before we get into the games for the week, the Vikings made the Texans look horrendous. I mean, that was just a brutal game for Houston.
Well, look, for someone who's not covering them but who sees them week after week and someone who talks about them frequently on the air, Sam Darnold's legit. Yeah. The Vikings are legit. This team is serious. And Sam Darnold has finally found a spot to thrive in. It's been the Vikings. This is a guy, Jason, who, believe it or not, leads all quarterbacks in touchdown passes so far this year in the first 3 games.
Yep.
If you would have told me Sam Darnold would have done that to begin this season, you would have called me crazy.
Yep.
I would have called you crazy. So it's impressive to see how they're doing it on both sides of the ball. The offense has been high flying. They scored 20 plus points in all 3 wins.
Yep.
They put up 34 last week. And on top of the fact, the defense has been sensational, getting so much pressure to Brock Purdy, to Daniel Jones, to CJ Stroud.
Yep.
I mean, in that win versus San Fran, they sacked Brock Purdy 6 times. Think about that.
Yeah.
So this Vikings defense is just as physical as the offense is fun and electric to watch.
Yep. No, 100%. But we move into this week's games, and we got a division game. And to be honest, you would think you know where this is going, but considering what the Cowboys' defense looks like, who knows? Against the Giants who are in Malik Neighbors, and the Giants really wanted to end this horrible losing streak against the Cowboys. Obviously, Giants Cowboys. Thoughts on this one? What do you got?
Well, this is going to be intriguing because you've got the Cowgirls who are just folding away in a really bad way so far this year, and it's gotten so bad when you have to be put in a corner where Dak has to be a cowgirl and get paid, and when he gets paid, he doesn't show up. This is what happens, and the Cowboys have just been ridiculously bad.
Yeah.
Where that first week they blew out Cleveland, then they got blown up by New Orleans. They came back last minute, but then they choked the Baltimore. So the Cowboys have just been really, really bad this year. While the Giants, on the other hand, they've been painful to watch the first 2 weeks. And then for some reason last week they say, all right, let's win. And they go beat the Browns. So something that's in common with these teams, Jason, they're both 1-2, and both of their wins have been against Cleveland. That is telling, to say the least, with how these two teams have gone so far this year.
Yeah.
And it's something where you wouldn't have expected both teams to be in such a similar spot in both of those ways.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to this matchup, this is tough because I don't know what Cowboys team I'm getting. I don't know what Giants team I'm getting. I really don't. But if we look at 2 factors, one, how the Cowboys have been historically at MetLife Stadium history, they do well there. 2, the Vikings beat the Giants in week 1 at MetLife Stadium. The Giants put up a lousy 6 points.
Yep.
So if we look at the recent historics, especially so far this year, the Cowboys should win this game. But to be honest with you, I just don't know. We could see the Giants stand out. I mean, Malik Neighbors was excellent last week. He single-handedly carried the Giants to that win last week. So if they're feeling good off of that, that's a plus for the Giants. On top of the fact the Cowboys are still, really rattled about their 2 straight losses at home.
Yep.
So again, this is a real strange game in a way that we didn't really think it would be. But for the sake of the segment, call me crazy, call me a hypocrite, call me whatever you want. I don't care. Give me Big Blue. I think the Giants beat the Cowboys because the Cowboys have just been so bad so far this year. Excuse me. It's hysterical to watch. And I think with the way that we saw Malik Neighbors stand out in such a strong way last week, where he single-handedly carried the game, that's all the Giants need to win. I mean, it just takes one player to stand out.
Yep.
Think about it. Alvin Kamara torched this Cowboys defense for 44 points. He didn't score all 44 of them, but he scored a good majority of them.
Yep.
If Malik Neighbors does the same thing versus this weak Dallas defense, the Giants win this game. Now, again, take those historic factors into play, like I said before. But if we're talking about momentum and based off last week, I'm going with the Giants. And the Cowboys are destined to have another bad week against a division opponent like the Giants this week. So give me the Giants. I think they win. And if they lose, which could happen, I will eat my own words.
I am going to take the Giants as well. Here's the thing. The Cowboys went from one of the top defenses in the league last year to a team. They can't even stop the run. I think Devin Singletary might eat them alive, actually. He's been very impressive so far as a Giant. Neighbors looks good. One thing I will say, well, the Giants games have not been pretty and amazing. The Giants defense is a lot better this year. The defense is a lot better.
Well, that first week was rough.
Yeah.
But even in that loss to Washington, they showed strides.
The
And of
only
course,
reason they
versus
lost to
Cleveland,
Washington was they had no kicker. That's the deal.
right. So look, I mean, again, their defense showed strides in week 2. They're showing strides with that win last week versus Cleveland. So that could play a that could play a massive difference. We'll see what happens, of course. But what I'll tell you is that Dallas defense is pathetic. It's so bad. They're so bad they couldn't sack a box of Cheetos. That's how
Yeah.
bad they are right now. So it's just not looking really good. I think the Giants win, but again, if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. I'll take it like a man. But if they win, I'll say, all right, the Giants won, the Cowboys suck. So there you go.
Yeah. Look, here's the one thing. The Giants just sacked Deshaun Watson, I believe, 8 times. Um, they could very easily get to Dak many times as well. So, look, I'm
Oh yeah,
going the
sure.
Giants. I don't think it's gonna be a pretty game. I really don't. I think it's gonna be rather ugly, to be honest. But Giants win. But as we said, don't be shocked if the Cowboys do pull something off, just because it's the Giants. But I think I'm taking the Giants. But it could go either way just because we don't know what team we're getting, like you said.
No, well, I mean, again, that's the difference. So we don't know what team we're getting until the game actually happens. And once we see the game happen, we could see the Giants of last week, or we could see Danny Jones of usual, where he's a disaster, he's painful, and he's just as painful to watch as he is how I sound right now because I'm sick.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I mean, it is well, look, I mean, again, I don't go from clear voice to this right now. I'm not Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Don't worry. But the point is that I am a little sick, so keep that in mind.
nah.
But regardless, I mean the Giants could make you sick tomorrow. If they do,
Either team can
okay.
make you sick tomorrow.
Yeah, true. No, I know. But again, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
But we move into the 1 o'clock window. The Carolina Panthers coming off a very impressive, dominant performance over the
I
Raiders
don't understand.
with
I really
Andy
don't get it.
Dalton coming out like a man on a mission. The Panthers here, Alex, have the opportunity to do the funniest thing, by the way, as much as it pains me to say, because they have a chance. Andy Dalton has a chance to go beat his old team. They're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. What do you got here?
Well, look, again, it's sort of similar to the last game we talked about. We don't know what we're getting until the game actually
Yeah,
starts. The Bengals actually looked good. They just blew it last week.
the defense sucked.
I
Yeah,
don't understand. I don't understand how they can win with Andy Dalton the way they did, and they can't with Bryce Young. It just does not make sense to me.
it
Please
does not help. It
explain
does
that to
not
me.
help Bryce Young's case. It does not.
No, no, not at all. And I just don't understand that. Now, maybe part of it's the Raiders, but part of it is also, again, how does that just happen? Now, Dalton's a veteran, okay, fine, what have you. Bryce Young's the franchise of this team. The team stinks. They're lousy, don't get me wrong. But if Andy Dalton can take that lousy team and put up 33 points in the team's first win, where in the first 2 weeks they had 13 points scored and 73 allowed, that says a lot.
Yeah,
So, based on what we've seen with that week, and honestly, Jason, this whole season's been weird so far. It's
yes,
been a very weird start. We're seeing teams do well. We're seeing teams struggle. We're seeing teams do well that we think that we didn't expect, and we're seeing teams that we thought would do better. They're struggling so far. So I think that's going to continue. I think Carolina is going to go from 0-2 to 2-2 because the Bengals just don't have their act together.
yeah,
And part of it is, like you said, their poor defense.
yeah,
But even though they put up 33 points last week, they still lost
yeah.
38-33. So the offense could look good. The defense has been atrocious. And I think with the way Carolina played last week with Dalton, they feel comfortable, they feel good, they feel more relaxed. I think they're going to take that into this week's matchup.
Yep.
So the fact that I'm starting with the Giants and Panthers to win these two
It's
games
scary.
is
It's
very, very weird, ironic, and crazy for me to say.
yeah.
But I'm going with the Giants, and I'm going with Carolina, the Panthers, to win as well.
Yep. Sadly, I'm going with the Panthers in this one as well. Nothing. I have no faith in this Bengals team right now. The Panthers look good. Their defense looked dominant. Uh, like I said, the Bengals offense got going, but their defense just could not stop anything.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one thing I want to ask you before, there's not, I feel like, too much to say just because of the two teams and the current situations they're in right now. But and
Sure.
I know it's early into this situation of Andy Dalton being the quarterback. But if he continues and really continues to look like he's been, can you see them eventually trading Bryce Young and keeping Dalton as the QB?
Well, look, Jason, keep in mind, I mean, I think it was late last week or earlier this week, sometimes recently, where there were not just trade talks about Bryce Young maybe getting moved. There were actually somewhat potential offers on the table for other teams to pursue him. So I think we could see that in the near future. It depends on what happens this week. It depends on what happens these next couple of weeks. I don't see Bryce Young getting dealt in the next week or two. If he gets traded, it's definitely at the trade deadline by late October.
Yeah,
And that will give a clearer picture of where the Panthers are with Andy Dalton compared to where they were with Bryce Young.
yep,
So give the thing time. If he does well again this week, then you have a case of him being the quarterback going forward.
yeah,
If he does not do well, he struggles, then we're sort of back to square one, and you're in this back and forth, situation of, okay, we had him play well, Dalton this is, and then he struggled, and Young is still not doing good. Where do we go with this?
yep,
So it really all depends on how Dalton plays this week. But again, if Young does get traded, it will happen either at the deadline this year or definitely in the offseason. And it's
yeah.
something that is pursuing to be in, that is something that's being talked about a little bit more. And I think if the Panthers do well with Dalton, it what would be ironic is if they start 0-2, let's say they win four straight, just for the sake of argument. If they go 4-2 with Andy Dalton, heck, 5-3, let's say, or 4-4 even, and Dalton plays well, he's the guy going forward. He's the guy next year, and Young is out of there by November.
Yep.
That's how crazy it would be. Now, again, that's just my prediction. But regardless, if that does become a reality, that says a lot about how bad Bryce Young really was with Carolina. And look, part of it is okay, he didn't fit well with the system, what have you. But part of it also is on him too, where if Andy Dalton can get this Carolina team to wins and they can be somewhat competitive, then that's more on Bryce Young than
Mm.
actually the Panthers doing harm to him.
Yeah, and why wouldn't the Panthers do that if they could? Because it's not like Andy Dalton's going to cost a lot of money.
Not at
That's
all.
yeah.
Oh,
So, if,
and what's so incredible, and I saw something recently as well, is that the last two drafts, the first two picks, of course, have been quarterbacks. And again, so far, we've seen the second overall pick, CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, excel much better than Caleb Williams this year and Bryce Young last year. So again, it's early for Stroud. For sure, that's the case, no question about it. But the fact that we've seen the number two overall picks, both quarterbacks, and Stroud and Daniels do so well early, while Young and Williams, number one, the first overall picks back to back years, struggle, that is telling right there.
yep. No, completely agree. We move in though to another game, another division matchup, a little bit more exciting and fun, honestly, because both teams have been playing pretty well so far. We got the Saints, who, sadly for them, they just blew that game to the Eagles. They were pretty close to winning it, and it fell apart late, and they just couldn't get anything really going after that. Against the Falcons, who have had back-to-back pretty good games. What do you got here? 2-1 versus 1-2. This is a pretty big game for these two teams.
Well, this is a massive game in week 4, and you've got some big divisional matchups like this one throughout the league. I mean, Vikings Packers, of course,
Yeah.
come up this weekend as well. So I think this is something that where
Last year, by the
whoever,
way, we would have been like when we talked about this, we would have been like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me!" But like, these
well,
teams are in a much
not
different place.
not just last year, the past several years, we would
Yeah,
have said that because the South has been seen as such a joke for years. But so far, right now, Tampa Bay, despite last week, Tampa Bay's still good.
yep,
They're 2-1. The Saints are 2-1. Atlanta might be 1-2, but Kirk Cousins is playing pretty good so far. And if Carolina gets to 2-2, then this division's a whole different conversation.
yep.
So we could potentially see all four teams at 2-2 by week
That would
5.
be crazy. The usually garbage division of the league could all be 2-2.
And it could be the most competitive so far as well. Keep that
Yeah,
in mind. So To answer your question, this is a game as well, and I don't want to go down that same rabbit hole. But lots of these games this week, like the first two we've talked about
You
and
don't
this
know
one,
what
is
team
going to
might
be
come out there. Yeah.
exactly. We're not going to know until we actually see what happens. We can make predictions. We can think this. We can think that. I don't want to go that same rabbit hole, but that's been the case so far for these first three games.
Yep.
Giants Cowboys, we're going to have to see what happens. Panthers Bengals, same thing. This game, especially so, because the Falcons played good. They started strong last week. They just blew it towards the end against a Kansas City team that gifted them a chance to win that game. While the Saints had their struggles, they started strong. They blew their lead, and they fell to Philadelphia at home.
Yep.
So I think we're going to see a game that is a massive toss-up, and this game could be a 3-point game. Honestly, it could be because the game with the Chiefs and Falcons was a 5-point difference.
Yep.
The game between Philly and New Orleans was a 3-point difference. I think we could see a 3 to 5 point difference again for both of these teams, and obviously whoever has the upper hand wins.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't be
after
shocked to
all,
see it. I wouldn't be shocked a late field goal to win it for one of them.
well, yeah, and after all of that, I'll give you my pick. I say Atlanta. I think the Falcons are desperate to bounce back. The Saints are too. Don't get me wrong, but Atlanta has so much more to prove over these past 2 weeks than the Saints do to a certain extent. I'm not saying the Saints don't have much to prove. They do. But Atlanta has had almost 2 back-to-back game-winning drives. The way they beat Philly, beyond impressive. The way they almost beat Kansas City would have been also very impressive.
Yes.
The way that they were up, they were down, and keep in mind, Atlanta started strong from the get-go.
As an
This
immediate
is a
touchdown.
different Falcons team compared to what we saw in week 1,
Yep.
where they started strong and fell apart. In week 2, it was kind of back and forth. They pulled ahead. They started strong. They didn't completely fall apart. They just blew it towards the end. So Atlanta was a really, really good team last week, even though
Yep.
they lost. And honestly, I would say, despite them losing, I think they played much better than Kansas City overall last
Yeah,
week.
I agree.
So I mean,
It was the
that
typical
plays a factor.
Kansas City game of missed calls against them. That kind
Right.
of thing.
But the thing is, Atlanta's going to have a different matchup and I think more success against the Saints defense compared to the Chiefs defense last week.
Yes.
Even though KC took 3 penalties on that potential game-winning drive, so I think Atlanta wins. I think Cousins bounce backs. He will bounce back, and you're going to see a stronger connection between him and Drake London, him and Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson is going to get a lot of carries in this game to really nail the coffin in. So we're going to see lots of high flying passing attack offense from Atlanta. We're going to see a strong rushing game from both the Saints and the Falcons, with of course, Bijan Robinson, and of course for New Orleans in their stud Alvin Kamara. So we're getting those 2 factors, but I think Atlanta with that passing game has a little bit of the edge. I think Cousins has the edge slightly over Derek Carr, and that should be enough for the Falcons to win this game by 3 to 5 points.
Yeah. I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think, as you just said, I think it'll be a very close 3 to 5 point game. Probably won on a field goal by Younghoe Koo. I think it's very, very possible that is what happens. I actually would not be shocked to see there being a lot of scoring in this game. I really would not. I have a weird feeling that it could be a lot of scoring, but still a very close game. Could be a
Well, I
shootout.
mean, again, look, I mean, the Falcons beat Philly 22-21. They lost last week 22-17. That's Atlanta. That could happen. But keep in mind, the Saints lost 15-12 last week.
True.
So we could see an offensive shootout, and we could see some star-studded offense production. I'm not putting, I'm not trying to dismiss that. But knowing how somewhat low scoring those games were, especially the Eagles and Saints last week,
Yeah.
we could see a massive defensive battle. We could see pressure coming to both quarterbacks. We could see both running backs, struggling, getting stuck.
Yeah.
We could see that too. So again, not to sort of repeat myself, but the point is, we're gonna have to wait until we see what happens.
Yep.
And that will definitely make the difference on who wins and who doesn't.
Completely agree. We move into another division matchup. We got the Houston Texans looking to bounce back and they have a perfect scenario after a really rough offensive game. They are playing the John Cena of defense, is a team who you basically their defense is invisible. The Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you got out here? You can't see them.
Well, Jason, if you are choosing the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game, you can't see to begin with. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not going to win this game. They suck. They
Yeah.
stink. And honestly, based on what I saw Monday night from them against Buffalo, I would rather put the Massapequa Mustangs up against the Buffalo Bills than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Massapequa Mustangs would have better defense and not give up as many points as the Jacksonville Jaguars did.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Massapequa Mustangs, number one. Number two, um, they suck.
Yeah.
Jacksonville stink. Houston struggled against a surprisingly very good Vikings team with a really good defense.
Yeah.
Houston has a grand opportunity this week to rebound because the defense they're going to play against this time is Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
The defense last week was stellar. This week, a joke. CJ Stroud should have a very good game.
Oh, he should have
This
a field
offense,
day. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully he does. And again, they got limited by 7 points because of that very good Vikings defense. But we look at this Jacksonville team, Josh Allen and company put up 47 points. I'm not saying CJ Stroud will do the same, but he should put up at least 25 to 30, and that should be enough to win the contest. So
Yeah.
I think you'll see Houston roar back in a way that they need to bounce back in. They're going to win in a very comfortable fashion,
Yeah.
and Jacksonville is going to fall to an embarrassing 4-0 as they fall. I think the Bengals fall too, of course. Those two teams, after getting embarrassed on Monday Night Football, will get embarrassed a second time. Jacksonville and Cincinnati will be 0-4, and again the Texans will just cream Jacksonville
Yeah.
this weekend.
I don't know what's going worse for Tony Khan right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars or AEW viewership. I really don't. You got AEW viewership, a couple 100,000 viewers every single week, and then you get the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are just terrible. So I don't know which one is going worse. They are both abysmal. I
Well,
don't know if this.
again, that says a lot about how poor the ownership is. This guy owns the Jaguars. He don't own AEW. I wouldn't have him own a lemonade stand. That's how bad it's going right now for him.
Yeah.
I tell you this much: this is a guy who would sell lemonade, and for some reason he would put booze in there. That's
Yeah,
a guy
well,
who would do this.
here's the
So,
problem,
so
and this is the Tony Khan issue. He's just a millionaire who he doesn't really have he's not really aware of the proper ways to do certain things. He just spends whatever he thinks that will make it better. He just spends, and he thinks that's just going to be something amazing. And look at this. AEW, they're signing so many people that they can't eat. That there's literally cycling around who's on their show every week. Um, you got Chris Jericho, who is just a champion at 53, 54 years old. You gave Trevor Lawrence this terrible contract, and he hasn't even. He's first off, he's lost 8 straight games. He's has not done anything to prove that contract. I can't believe he
Mhm.
even got that contract. He named a stadium after the guy. Like, what is this guy doing?
Well, look, if this continues, you're gonna have the Trevor Banks Stadium and the Chris Jericho, the Chris Jericho. Why can't I say it now? The Chris Jericho, Chris Jericho
This is a
Memorial.
struggle.
Jason, it's been a long day. I sound like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. right now, and we're gonna have the Chris Jericho toilet. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here. So this is just going to be a fiasco for Jacksonville. Whether it's Chris Jericho, Trevor Lawrence, Sting, you can bring back Ronald McDonald for all you care. You can bring back all these crazy characters from AEW. You can put those wrestlers on the Jaguars, and they still couldn't win a game for you.
Yeah.
That's how bad the Jaguars are right now.
Yeah.
You can put Chris Jericho at quarterback. He might do someone slightly better, but they're not going to win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's just, not much to say. I think this is going to be a steamroll game, perfect game for the Texans. We have 7.5 minutes left. You could cover one more game before we split this up into our second half. We got the Denver Broncos coming off what was actually a very impressive win against the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
They did not let Baker Mayfield get anything going. Bo Nix had an amazing game, by far his best game, obviously, of his young career, against the Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I actually think this could be a really, really fun game, especially with what these two teams are looking like suddenly. I know it was 1 week with the Broncos, but Rodgers looked like the best he's looked in a couple years the other day. So,
Well, look,
what do you got?
this is going to be a great game. I love Bo Nix. I love Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be a really good game between a QB legend for nearly 20 years and a rookie upcomer who was a beast in college football, who just had his first career NFL win and played phenomenal in that win. At the same time, Aaron Rodgers looked so comfortable, so good, so solid last week, and just so in sync.
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, I think Bo Nix will play well. I
But
think the
not well
Broncos
enough
will.
to win. Yeah.
Yes, I think they'll make it competitive. I think they'll be good. I think they'll learn a lot and try to translate their success from last week into this game. I think you'll see that success happen, but it won't be enough because Aaron Rodgers is back to tip-top shape. He's
Yep.
back to his peak form. He's back to the old Rodgers we are used to seeing for almost 20 years now.
Yep.
He looks so good. And on top of the fact, he played last Thursday. He's had 10 days or so of rest to
Yeah.
get ready for this next
No,
game.
you're right. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
So put that in mind too, Jason. He looks good. He's building more chemistry with his offense. This Jets defense is getting stronger and better week after week. I think they win. I think it'll be somewhat competitive. I think the Jets win by about 10 points or so. But Aaron Rodgers looks really good. The Jets look really good. They're going to win. Denver will make it a fight, but Aaron Rodgers will be his classic self, and they'll win the contest.
Yeah, I completely agree. It will be a close game. I think Bo Nix he's going to look a lot better going forward than he did the first 2 weeks. I don't think we saw the real Bo Nix those first 2 weeks. It was
Oh, for
very,
sure.
very
Well,
ugly, but I
well,
don't think
look,
that's what he is as a quarterback. I really don't.
most rookie quarterbacks, regardless of their status going in, regardless of when they were drafted,
Yeah.
their first games, their first couple of games, are not going to be the prettiest performances. That was
There's
the case for
very
Bo
few
Nix.
exceptions on that, yes.
There are. Brock Purdy is one. C.J. Stroud is another, to be more recent the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But Bo Nix is a guy who played 6 years of college football, waited a long time to play in the pros. Now he's here. He looked
Yeah.
good in the preseason. Again, was a rough first 2 weeks, but that was a great third-week game for him to bounce back, build some confidence, and pick up a win. Guaranteed no touchdown passes, but a really nice rushing score.
Yeah.
So Bo Nix just looked more calm, cool, collected. That's a good sign for Denver. He was very good. And that's just a stepping stone after, some shaky starts. And that's going to happen. Freshman blues, that's fine.
Yeah.
But give him time. He'll build his stature. And last week was a start for something for him that we're going to see later this season and throughout this campaign.
Yep, completely agree. Honestly, I'm actually really looking forward to this game. I do think it's going to be a fun game. I feel like a lot of people, probably even going into last week, would have seen this game on the schedule and been like, "Oh, I have no interest unless I'm a fan of one of these teams." But I think it's
Right.
going to be a fun game to watch. I really do.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Alex, the next game I want to get into is a game that means a lot to you. Sam Darnold, who is a little banged up against your Packers and Malik Willis. What are your thoughts on this one? Obviously, Malik Willis's first real test of a team he's playing.
Look, this is going to be a good game. This is a game that really is going to really determine how Malik Willis can play against true competitors.
Yep.
He beat up on his old team, played great last week. I'll give him that. He was awesome to watch. More than 200 passing yards, a touchdown pass, 73 rushing yards, 1 touchdown score. He was excellent last week in that 16-point win. The week before, solid enough. More than 120 passing yards, one touchdown pass. They beat the Colts by 6. This is a challenge because the Vikings have been surprised good, and their defense is C.J. Stroud for at least half of that. That says a lot of how the Vikings defense has been this year. And last week, their defense allowed only 7 points to a high-flying Houston team. and they've allowed less than 20 points in all 3 games so far this year.
Yep.
So they have been very, very good. They are excellent. And Sam Darnold has been a star in these first 3 games. Justin Jefferson is his key guy. He and Darnold have had a remarkable connection that goes back to training camp. And you're seeing that play out these first 3 weeks so far.
Yep.
He's been excellent. So Darnold leads all quarterbacks in passing touchdowns. Like I said before, that's going to be a big difference here. Malik Willis is going to have to adjust. Can he play against a true solid team? He's played good. He's been excellent. He's been the right fit for this team. But the question is, can he play against a basically contender, a team that is really right now above you, your division standings, and this is the first game of the season for both squads. As I wear my Packers shirt,
Yep.
I hope they win. Look, I sound like Jabba the Hutt right now, so bear with me. But I think this is a game you're going to see a back and forth game. It'll be physical. It'll be strong. It'll be a tough matchup. And honestly, if the Packers lose this game, it's not the end of the world. It's good that Jordan Love is not going to play. The Packers do not need to rush Jordan Love because Malik has been an excellent backup so far the first 3 weeks. Again, we'll see how he plays in this matchup against a true contender, but he has been a solid replacement so far without Jordan Love. Regardless, I look at both teams, I look at the matchups, I look at how they've played against certain teams and who they've played. The Vikings clearly better, not just because of the record, but the fact that they beat Fran and Houston the way they have is very impressive.
Yep.
So, Jason, as a Packers fan, and I say this as a Packers fan, I go with the Vikings this week. They're a very good team. They're just better.
Yeah.
And I hope Malik can step up. I think he'll play good. I just don't know, again, what we'll get until we see this game start. This is sort of, again, lots of these games this week are going to be like that, where teams, until they play the game and once the game starts, we're not sure what we're getting exactly. Because 1 week it's something else, 1 week it's good, one week it's bad, one thing is completely different. Malik Willis finally has a test this week against the Vikings. I think he'll do well, but I don't see him doing well enough against that strong Vikings defense. So give me the Vikings to win this game.
Yeah. Look, I think it's going to be a very good game. I think it's, as you said, going to be a physical back and forth game. I do got the Vikings here just because obviously it's Malik Willis. I don't think he'll be able to keep up with this Vikings team.
I agree. Yeah.
But if it was Jordan Love, I think it would be a different story. I would probably actually go with the Packers if it was Love. I'm going to be real with you.
I mean, look, the thing is, though, it's so close because even if Jordan Love was healthy right now, we still wouldn't know what the team would look like for Green Bay. Now, guaranteed they'd be good, but they still would have lost this week. They probably would have beaten the Colts. They probably would have beaten the Titans. Okay, fine. But we also look at the teams they played. The Packers have had easier games so far. The Vikings have had challenges, and they've won those games in very convincing fashion, especially last week. So the Vikings overall, with how hot they've been on both sides of the ball, I think Jordan Love would make it more closer than it will be. But at the same time, I still see the Vikings getting by because of what we've seen so far by them, even if Jordan Love was healthy.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I do expect a very, very good matchup here, as we both said. But I am pulling more towards the Vikings in this one. But I don't know. I feel like it could go either way. I feel like the Packers and Malik Willis could pull something off. But I'm going to lean towards the Vikings. We move into a game that I don't really feel like we have to talk about too much. Probably one of the worst 3-0 teams I have ever seen. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers against Anthony Richardson and the Colts, who just got their first win in very ugly fashion because it was yet another ugly game for them. I don't know if you saw that play. Anthony Richardson had a bomb pass down the field, and then he did some really ugly toss into the end zone that got picked off. I have not been impressed these last 2 weeks with Anthony Richardson, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on this game.
Well, look, Justin Fields has showed strides. Don't get me wrong. He's been good. But, again, this Pittsburgh Steelers team is still stacked offense. For a defense-first team. Well, look, Jason, the thing is, though, This Pittsburgh team is 3-0, guaranteed. But let's not forget what happened in 2020. What
Yeah.
were they, 10-0 to kick off the year?
Yeah.
They lost that first game to Washington in Week 11, and they folded in the first round. Don't get bought on Pittsburgh. And the reason why they are 3-0, Justin Fields has been good, but it's been the defense and special teams that's been that 1-2 punch. Again, that first week, Buffalo to get so you look at the defense, the special team, that's on the edge. And also, they're kicking off against a lousy Chargers team that just lost their quarterback to injury in Justin Herbert.
Yep.
So there's not much to compare. And for the Colts, they've been shaky, they've been rocky. They finally got their first win, but like you said, Anthony Richardson has not been the best. He's been good, he's shown flashes, but he's also struggled a lot.
Yeah.
And his struggling performances have really outweighed some of those, small few good glimpses we've seen of him so far this year. So Pittsburgh will be 4-0, a very unimpressive 4-0, but they'll win the game because when it comes to the teams they're playing, they're easier opponents, and all they have to do is send Boswell out there, kick a few field goals, limit the opponent, and
Yeah. Yeah, look, one thing I will say is I just don't trust Richardson. Boswell looks good, as you said. He's a huge part of why they're 3-0 so far. The Steelers' defense is amazing. Especially compared to the Colts, they have Swiss cheese defense. We could actually
Well,
see.
again, you're comparing pepper jack cheese to a rotten morsel. So what's the difference right there?
No.
So again, Pittsburgh has always been a defensive team, no question about it. That goes back especially to the '70s with that Steel Curtain, dynasty.
Yep.
But right now, they're 3-0 because of defense and special teams. Justin Fields has looked good. He's been all right. But again, they're just a very unimpressive team that sure wins in that way. It's a team like Kansas City. You put him against Minnesota right now. You put him against San Francisco when healthy.
Yeah.
They got blown out.
Yeah.
No matter how good their defense is, they get blown out.
Oh, 100%.
If you put them against the Jets right now, Aaron Rodgers would torch that Pittsburgh defense.
Completely agree. I don't think there's I don't know how you feel. I don't think there's too much more to say on this game. I think
no, not much, because again, this is the same Pittsburgh team that will start 4-0 with the same factors we talked about, and then once they play really good teams, they'll sort of melt away like usual.
Yep, I got the Steelers in this one though. That is how I will finish it up. I don't think it's gonna be a pretty game at all. We move into a game here. We got the Rams coming off a huge comeback win against the 49ers against Caleb Williams, who needs to be thanking his defense right now because these games wouldn't even be competitive if it wasn't for that defense because he has been so bad. But what are your thoughts on this one? I feel like it's another game we don't need to say much on.
Well, look, Caleb Williams has been awful. No question about it. But I think we still need to give him time to progress. The difference between him and Bo Nix is that Bo Nix actually has promise in a system like Denver. Chicago sold the front car. They sold the entire city to trade Justin Fields away and draft Caleb Williams.
Yep.
And right now, they're getting a horrible, horrific investment. So the reason why the Bears have that one win again was defense, like you said, and they've been competitive to a certain extent because of it. Caleb Williams, the way he's playing is like pulling teeth. It's painful. It's bad to watch, and it's not been fun. And again, give him time. Hopefully, he develops. But we also look at the circumstances. Justin Fields by now, even if the Bears were 0-4, whatever the record was to begin last year, 0-5, the way it was they started, Justin Fields struggled, but Justin Fields was still productive. Caleb Williams is not productive so far. He has not been productive.
And you could argue that he has better weapons than Justin Fields did.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah, sure. And the thing is also is that with Justin Williams, whether he had weapons or not, he still played well. He was able to find open space, make games competitive. And last year, he led Chicago to 6 wins after starting 0-5. So you ship away Justin Fields for Caleb Williams, who's a crumb bum so far. And with the way it has been a lousy, lousy start and a lousy investment. Give him time to develop. Don't get me wrong. Bo Nix, give him time. He played great last week. Hopefully, Caleb Williams will play good this week, and this is his shining moment. But I just don't see it with Chicago. So the Bears are a train wreck. They're going to continue to fall apart. And I think
Yeah. I look right now. I just don't have any faith in them. DeAndre Swift looks terrible. Caleb Williams looks terrible. Keenan Allen can't even get on the field because he's banged up already. DJ Moore's honestly the only bright spot when he does get opportunities to catch the ball. I'm blanking on his name, but that rookie's pretty good. But otherwise, there's really not a lot of promise there for that Chicago Bears team, and it's hard to not. I know both teams are very banged up, but it is hard to not take the Rams after they just came back and beat the Niners.
Well, yeah, for sure. And look, I mean, again, without Puka, without Cooper Kupp for weeks, the fact that they won that game was impressive. Now, guarantee the 49ers lost Debo and they had McCaffrey hurt, and they've got their problems right now. But they won that game
Kittle
by
is
3.
out. Ayuk is a disaster. So
Right. So you put those things in play, Jason, and the Rams not healthy are better than a Bears team that is somewhat healthy, for sure.
yes.
And I think they'll go into Chicago, have fun, win that game. And despite them being banged up, they'll be 2-2. The Bears will lose. And we're going to continue to see this Caleb Williams downward spiral. It's just been bad. It's been so, so bad to watch. And you know what? For Justin Fields, yeah, he's not doing the best in Pittsburgh, but this is sort of like I told you so kind of moment for him. Because Justin Fields, even when Chicago was 0-5, was throwing touchdown passes, was looking competent.
Yeah.
Now, good. Now, sure, there were games where he struggled. Like, there were games last year where he was painful to watch too, but he turned it around. And towards the end of the season, even when Chicago was not really going to make the playoffs at all, they were somewhat in the conversation because of Justin Fields and the way he was playing. And the difference is, sure, DJ Moore's playing good, but you have DJ Moore playing good mainly because of DJ Moore. Justin Fields and DJ Moore were a solid connection last year, especially when they beat Washington to win that first game. Caleb Williams can barely find DJ Moore.
Yeah.
He can barely find his right toe on the field.
Yeah.
So it has been a bad, bad game and a bad, bad start. So we look at this, turnaround so far. They go all in. I knew this would blow up, and I'm fine with it because I hate the Bears. So that's fine with me. But if they take Marvin Harrison Jr., they keep Justin Fields.
They had Keenan Allen in there. Yeah.
Right. Chicago would probably be a very good team if they kept Justin Fields and they drafted Marvin Harrison.
Yeah. Completely agree. I don't think there's much more to say. I think the Rams win this one pretty easily, to be totally honest with you. We move into a game that's playoff rematch, actually. We got the Eagles coming off a comeback win and a team that's looking to get themselves bounced back after a rough loss to the Broncos. We got the Eagles-Bucks. What do you got here? This should be a fun one.
Well, I'll tell you this much: it will not be the 32-9 disaster the Eagles suffered last week, or rather last year in the playoffs.
Yeah,
we are going to see a good game. Where Saquon Barkley has been the driving force. After a match of week 2, he played phenomenal in that win versus the Saints, and I said he would. 2 touchdowns, over 140 yards on the ground. He helped Philly narrowly escape by 3. The Eagles, if they win this game, is that same way. Defense and Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts has been awful. He's not good. And Nick Sirianni is becoming a worse and worse play caller every time he wakes up and goes to bed.
Yeah.
Every day that passes by, Nick Sirianni can't call plays for his life. It's getting really bad.
Yeah.
At the same time, for Tampa Bay, great start. Bad game last week. It happens.
Yeah.
But give them time to bounce back. Tampa Bay is a more well-rounded team, a lot more well-rounded, a lot more well-rounded than Philly. And if
Completely
Saquon
agree on that.
struggles, if the Eagles really fall apart early, if Tampa Bay starts off strong and they run away with it from there, it's going to be all Baker and company. So honestly, I go with Tampa. They're the safe pick in this one. I think they win the game regardless. I think Philly will make it somewhat competitive, but Tampa has more to prove to bounce back than the Eagles do to winning two straight this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. Look, right now I'm not confident at all in that Eagles team. Um, that was just a blown game by the Saints. To be honest, the Saints should have won that game considering how much, what they weren't scoring, but they were in complete control until that touchdown the Eagles had. But yeah, again, I have a lot. Look, it was an ugly game against the Broncos, but I have a lot more faith in Baker Mayfield and the Bucks right now, which is a really bad sign of for how things have been for Jalen Hurts. Because me and you've talked about Baker Mayfield many, many times and how neither of us trust him. So for us to have more
Well,
faith
look,
in
I
Baker
mean,
Mayfield,
Baker's the
then
guy.
yeah, that's scary.
Again, I've slammed Baker, but he proved last year. I'll give him that. Last week he wasn't good, but this year so far he has been good. Baker's finally found his match. It took a couple teams, but it's Tampa Bay.
Yep,
Tampa Bay is the place for him to be at. And it's working out really well so far. And I think that will continue this week. Jalen Hurts, where he should have been the MVP, he lost in that Super Bowl, has not been the same.
yep,
Injury, bad play, etc. And part of that is really, I think, a riffraff in his relationship with Nick Sirianni.
yep,
There is a massive disconnect right now between those two. And because of that, you're seeing the struggles, you're seeing the really bad play, the inconsistent play, and you're seeing a mess in Philly. So the Eagles again, a team where you don't know what you're getting week in and week out. Tampa Bay, you do to a certain extent. You know you're getting solid offense. You're getting
yep,
strong defense. They're a team that, regardless, you're getting a consistent team.
yeah,
Now, last week was a different story, but Tampa's a well-rounded franchise, a lot more well-rounded than Philly to a certain extent.
yep.
Now, guaranteed,
The one thing I'll add in, by the way, that we have to mention about the Eagles, we don't know the status of AJ Brown. That is one thing we
right?
could say. And Devontae Smith got concussed. He has a concussion now, so he's probably not playing.
Well, again,
Even with those weapons, he looks terrible. So what is he gonna do without them?
that's the thing there. Weapons or not, he's not been good. That plays a factor in that well-rounded statement I just made. And also to follow up on that, the injuries continue to really haunt them. You mentioned Brown and Smith; those are his two key guys. When they're healthy this year, he's done jack squat. Now that they're not healthy, what is he going to do against a very good physical Tampa defense? So I think we'll see Tampa win. They're going to move on. They'll win this game. Philly drops, and this matchup, and it'll be something where it'll be a frustrating loss for the Eagles. Maybe not as frustrating as that Week 2 loss to Atlanta, but Tampa Bay is just a better, well-rounded team, and they're going to walk away with a win.
Yep, I completely agree on that. We move into the first game, by the way, in the 4 o'clock window. We got the Patriots coming off an ugly, ugly loss to the Jets. Brissett could not do anything in that game against the 49ers, who are very, very banged up as here. We got no McCaffrey, no Debo Samuel, no word on George Kittle. Ayuk looks terrible. Brock Purdy is day to day with back soreness. It is a mess right now, and they blew that game last week. Uh, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is one too where you think San Francisco will win. I think they will win, regardless of the injuries. And I think Purdy will play Sunday. But Brock Purdy does not have to do much to win this game.
No.
Jalen Mason has to be the key. If he goes off like he did versus the Jets in Week 1, San Francisco wins this game no problem.
Yep.
Because the Patriots defense has been better so far this year, but they will not be able to keep up with his speed. They will not be able to really stand toe against a strong offensive line, giving Jalen Mason holes left, right, and center to just dart through.
Yes. Well, one thing I do
So,
want to mention, by the way, that first off, no, when it comes for the Niners, limited for George Kittle this week, and no Trent Williams, which is a huge factor.
Sure, but even without Trent Williams, their O line is one of the best in the entire National
Yes.
Football League. So they don't have to be fully healthy to win this game. You want them to be healthy, of course, but Brock Purdy does not have to have sweep them to win. Jacoby Brissett has to, on the other hand, for the Patriots, because they got shell shocked last week, the Rodgers and the Jets.
Yeah.
They'll try to bounce back. And keep in mind, before losing to the Jets last week, they lost they lost to Seattle in overtime that second week before. So
it was actually a good first 2 weeks for the Patriots until that.
No, it was. And look, the thing is that you see this team, they need to find a way to just turn the clock around. Brock Purdy and the 49ers, if they win this game, it doesn't have to be pretty, like I said. There's more pressure on the Patriots winning than the 49ers losing, personally, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, again, they don't got to be perfect. Even if they have, their backup quarterback in there and he plays a couple snaps or he plays the game, that's not going to be the end of the world. And honestly, I can't tell you who their backup is right now off the top of my head. But
wait, for which team? For you saying
for San Francisco?
Not a clue who it is either.
So regardless, whoever it is, it could be Joe Schmo, Joe Namath, or Joe Blow. Whoever comes in and plays backup quarterback, if it has to come to that.
It's Joshua Dobbs, I believe.
Okay, well, look, Josh Dobbs is no pretty pony, but if he looks competent enough against Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots, and Ayuk is able to build some type of rapport with Dobbs in this game at least, then that's a good stepping stone. But again, they don't have to be the most explosive passing team.
No.
They win the game on the ground. They win their game with their strong, solid defense. That's been the case for years now. So San Francisco has to be San Francisco football on the ground with the running and the solid defensive pressure 2%, because the Patriots' O-line is terrible.
Yep.
So that's all they got to do. It's simple enough.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they win. The Patriots, their offense is not good. They go from putting up 17 to putting up 20 to putting up 3. This game against San Francisco, in San Francisco, if they struggle early and the 49ers defense just has a field day with Jacoby Brissett, it's going to be a long, long day for that Pats offense. They're going to get shell-shocked. And honestly, don't be surprised if San Francisco scores maybe half of their points off defensive touchdowns. Pick six, fumble recovery, whatever. So if that's the case, that's kudos to San Francisco, winning with their defense first and relying on their run game despite the injuries.
Yep, I couldn't say it much better than you did. I will say this right now. I got the Niners in this one. If the Niners lose this game, that is a big, big concern. They should not lose this game at all. I know it's only week 4, but a lot of questions will be raised if they go from actually at one point dominating that Rams game. They were all over them, to blowing that and then going and losing to Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots would be a huge issue. So Niners, I think, win this, but again, there's been so many upsets. It's hard to say that it's impossible, right? I mean, it really.
Well, I mean, again, you never know. And like I said before, I seriously think there's more pressure on the Patriots to win than the Niners to lose.
Yeah.
Guaranteed the Niners are hurt. They are obviously the better team, but their defense is healthier, a lot more healthier than the offense, obviously. That's all they need to win this game, and the run game too. But for the Patriots, they're a team that won the first week, blew that game in week 2, lost in week 3. We're still not sure where the Patriots are this year.
Yep.
There's more pressure on them to have this get-right game after last week than San Francisco blowing that game last week. If San Fran loses, sure, there's a problem, don't get me wrong, but you have to take into effect the injuries on this roster, especially offensively.
Yes.
If San Francisco's fully healthy, they're 4-0 by next week.
No I completely agree, yeah.
So the injuries play a factor here. But Again, that pressure is more on the Patriots to see what can they do. Can they take advantage against a depleted 49ers team
Yeah.
who could be on the ropes if you beat them?
Yeah. Look, if the Patriots lose this, I know it's week 4, but I might say that is probably a wrap for them because I don't think they're good enough to climb their way back from 1-3. I really don't. I don't think they're a good enough team to do that.
Especially with Buffalo being 3-0 and the Jets being 2-1, and we think the Jets win and probably Buffalo's going to win this week. So those two teams right now are fighting for first, and Miami's a train wreck with Tua and Skyler being hurt.
Yeah.
So Patriots will have to fight for last place or third place, really. And they honestly might come in third place because of how messed up the QB situation is right now for the Dolphins.
Yep.
So they come in third place, which is a win for them this year, but it's not going to get you ground against New York, the Jets, of course, and the Bills.
Yep, completely agree. We move into a game of two quarterbacks that have actually looked pretty good so far. We got Jaden Daniels, who just upset the Bengals in Cincinnati, and while they are 1-2, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. have been a lot of fun to watch so far. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, look, Kyler and Marvin have been fun. Jaden Daniels has put an exclamation point so far
Yeah.
on this Commanders team with how they played. With the win this past Monday, beyond impressive. 38 points, 2 touchdowns, more than 250 yards. Terry McLaurin with a massive touchdown score, more than 100 yards in the air. They played great last week. And look, they feel really good. Arizona's defense is not great. Maybe not as bad as the Bengals, but the Cardinals are a team where you know they're not going to be a good team this year.
Yep.
Arizona should not win this game. The Commanders have the edge. I think they go in, take care of business. Jaden Daniels is coming off a great game. He's honestly just been solid these first 3 games this year. He's been a phenomenal rookie quarterback to watch. And if he builds off that and builds his further chemistry with Terry McLaurin, then there is no question in my mind Washington wins this game. I think that the Commanders win. They'll take the game in pretty convincing fashion. I think Marvin and Kyler will have a good connection. They'll play well. And like we see a lot, the Cardinals start strong. They're in it for the first half, and then by the third quarter, they're out of it because the opposing team just blows the entire door off. So I think we'll see that same scenario, and especially in the second half, we could see Jaden Daniels have 2 touchdowns again, more than 250 yards for the second straight week. Or we could see him throw 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, maybe 250 again.
Yeah.
We'll see. But regardless, the Commanders will win this game.
Yeah, Commanders win. I do think it's going to be a very fun, fast-paced game. I would not be shocked to see a lot of scoring actually in this game, just because the defenses can be a little rough for both sides of things. That you saw it against the Bengals. The defense was not that good at the end of that game. It was just the Bengals defense couldn't hold up. That's the reason they won that game. And Jaden Daniels, obviously.
Sure. Again, not to cut you off, but the Bengals defense definitely played its role. They suck. Don't get me wrong on that. But Jaden Daniels was exceptional.
Yes.
And the win for a rookie quarterback to completely pick apart the defense the way he did against Cincinnati last week was beyond impressive for a guy playing in his 3rd professional NFL. Again, the 2 touchdowns, 254 passing yards. Unbelievable game.
Yep.
How can that not translate this week versus the Cardinals? I just don't see it not translating. So it will translate. He'll play well. The Commanders will be 3-1.
And they'll stay atop of the NFC East, as crazy as that sounds to say. But should be a really fun game. We move into the first of the 425 games. We have 7 minutes on here. Maybe we could try to get in 2 more because these next 2 are games that we really don't have to talk about too much, especially with the injury to Justin Herbert. We got the Chiefs versus the Chargers. What do you got here?
It will not be a love story for the Chiefs. For the Chargers. Although if it's not if this game is not a love story for the Chiefs, then Taylor Swift is breaking up with Travis Kelce. But look, yeah, I mean, is there really much to talk about, Jason? The Chiefs win this game. They're gonna pummel Los Angeles. Jim Harbaugh might get just completely just obliterated.
Yeah.
And no, I mean again, Casey's coming off a they're coming off a great win last week.
Yeah.
And Mahomes doesn't have Mahomes, Kelsey, the offense. They've got injuries. Pacheco's hurt. Rashid Rice got banged up.
Yeah.
They're still without. They're still without Hollywood Brown.
Kelsey looks terrible.
Kelsey's been shaky again, guaranteed. So the offense is still kind of rusty right now with those injuries in play too. But the defense has been exceptional.
Yep.
That has continued to be the case since last year's second straight championship. So the defense can just sack Easton Stick, whoever the quarterback is.
It's Heineke.
Taylor Heineke now?
Yeah.
Well, Taylor Heineke might have to have plenty of Heinekens following this game. Got banged up multiple times. Chris Jones is going to have a field day. This Chiefs defense is going to pick off Taylor Heineke multiple times. The Chargers are going to get embarrassed. I mean, again, Chiefs win this game, and it's going to be such a big difference. The score is going to be so much longer than Jim Harbaugh's nose when he lies about cheating at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, it's actually very possible that we could see it being we could see an injury to Heineke here. They might actually pummel him in this game. I'm gonna be totally
Well, I mean,
honest.
again, the Chargers are a joke, and Jim Harbaugh's going to complain and be upset. Oh my goodness, this is not fair. But no, come on, no.
And obviously now Joey Bosa's out, they're injured. It's a mess for them again. So,
and Harbaugh can't go back to Michigan because he's banned from college football for 4 years. So Jim is stuck there. And if Jim wants to, be stuck in Los Angeles, good for him. Just, by the time though, if this team continues to play the way they play, and Justin Herbert gets hurt consistently, Jim Harbaugh will be setting up a homeless shelter, like so many homeless encampments across Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he'll be joining the rest of his friends in Los Angeles on the streets of San Francisco. Well, maybe San Francisco too, but Los Angeles as well, and it won't be pretty.
Yep, completely agree. Yeah, Chiefs win this one easily. Alex, the next game I want to get into is another game I don't feel like we have to talk about much because both teams just don't look good. We got Deshaun Watson coming off a brutal, ugly game against the Giants, and Gardner Minshew and the Raiders coming off an ugly, ugly loss to the Carolina Panthers. What do you got here? The final game of the 4 o'clock window.
Jason, I would rather cough the rest of this segment than talk about this game, but I know I have to. Anyway, do I really have to choose a team for this? Because this is just bad. Because
pick your poison.
Pick your poison. I mean, this is like picking your poison to a lifelong death sentence.
A death sentence that never ends. Yeah,
exactly. Because the Browns are awful. Deshaun Watson stinks. And the Raiders, I don't know what the heck happened last week versus Carolina. Gardner Minshew.
How do you go from beating the Ravens to that? I don't understand that.
It's called Las Vegas Raiders football, baby. Just win, baby. That's what Al Davis said. Just win, baby, and then lose next week.
True.
Look, for the sake of the segment, the Browns are just such a catastrophe. They get blown up by Dallas. They lose to the Giants. Daniel Jones beat them. And for the Raiders, they're going to be so motivated to bounce back after such that bad loss to Carolina. I think it's simple, even though it's painful. Choose the Raiders here. I think Gardner won't be perfect, but he'll be better than last week. The Browns are just an absolute catastrophe. They are terrible. They are lousy. They are horrific. They can bring back whoever the heck they want from the old 1950 teams, and they would still not be able to win. Jim Brown could come back and play running back. Jim Brown would get hurt on the first play of the game.
Yeah.
So the Browns stink. There's a reason why Cleveland is called the mistake by the lake. The Browns are a mistake. the second edition of the Browns are a mistake. Deshaun Watson playing for the Browns has been a massive mistake.
Yeah.
And it will continue to be that way when the Raiders find a way. I don't know how they win this game, but they're going to win this game somehow.
Yeah.
Or both teams are so bad, there'll be a tie.
Yeah, I said it to you earlier today on the phone that I don't it was either yesterday or today actually that I don't know if Deshaun Watson is a worse quarterback or person. I really don't.
Well, uh, personality, that's a whole different conversation. But when it comes to his quarterback play, nah, he's terrible. I mean, he's got more lawsuits to deal with than touchdown passes so far this year. So that tells you a lot right there.
Yeah.
That doesn't help your case. And on top of the fact, I mean, again, it's just an absolute, just horrific game that we saw last week. It's been a horrific season so far. And not just more lawsuits than touchdown passes. He's got more lawsuits than points they put up last week when they lost to the Giants.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah, not much to say on this one just because it's two really bad teams, but I think the Raiders are a smidge better. Yeah.
Well, again, smidge. Smidge is what? By the difference of rotten cheese and just completely brown cheese? Like, I mean, what's the difference here?
Not much.
I mean, well, again, it's going to be a headache of a game. I feel terrible for the people who are paying to watch that game by going there. I don't know who's on the call, but I'd be more than willing to buy you a drink from here after the game.
Just to
It's gonna be a
help
headache
you,
to
yeah.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's painful.
yeah, it's gonna be really ugly. But Raiders win. We move
Yeah,
into a good game actually for Sunday Night Football. The 3-0 Bills coming off a dominant performance, and they are against the team that just got their first win in a dominant performance, even though it ended up being a 3-point game against the Dallas Cowboys. We got the Ravens, Bills, Ravens. Thoughts on this one?
there's a big game. Look, this is a game to see who's legit and who's a team that has a really tough schedule.
Yep.
The Ravens have had a tough schedule. Despite them blowing that game to Vegas, they've had a tough start to this season.
Yes.
Kansas City, Dallas, not guaranteed they beat Dallas, but that first game with KC was not helpful.
No.
And now they play Buffalo, who's red hot. So this is a game where how will Baltimore approach this, knowing the Bills are red hot and on fire?
Yeah.
At the same time, we look at this Bills team. They beat Arizona, beat Jacksonville. Teams. They're getting a challenge in their own right. There's a game of two teams are looking for a challenge, who are playing challenging teams, somewhat not exactly at the same level, but close enough behind Kansas City.
Yeah.
And look, this will be a game that we'll have to see what happens once it starts. But based on what we've seen, Josh Allen is playing out of this world. But this Baltimore defense has been solid despite the wins and losses. So I think we'll see a close game. It might come down to a field goal. Right now, if I'm a betting man, if I'm choosing between the Bills and the Ravens, based on what I've seen the past couple of weeks, based on what's been the case so far this year, give me Buffalo, give me Josh Allen. I'm going with the Bills.
Yeah.
This is no diss to Lamar. This is no diss to Derrick Henry. This is no diss to Baltimore. They won that game versus Dallas, but they almost blew it.
Yeah.
They lost to Kansas City. They could have won that game. They should have been the Raiders. They blew that game. So Baltimore has had their challenges, but they've also had their own problems and own self-defeats with the losses to the Ravens. And again, their first win, they were up big time. Dallas almost came back.
It. Yeah.
So I think Baltimore has a lot more to really just fix. Buffalo has just been so solid. And the question is, can the Ravens find a structure in this game against a just phenomenal Bills team, especially on offense? And where this defense is usually strong, that defense almost cost them the game last week.
Yep.
How are they going to rebound against red-hot Josh Allen and Buffalo without Stephon Diggs? That's the question. Maybe well, maybe not too well. I think regardless of that answer to that question, Buffalo wins and Josh
Yeah.
Allen plays lights out.
Yeah. One thing I will add in, James Cook looks amazing so far this year. He has been incredible so far.
Yeah,
Unstoppable out there actually. But
yeah,
yeah, look, the one thing that the Ravens are doing that is really bothering me is they are not finding their tight ends at all. Likely has been invisible the last 2 weeks. Mark Andrews has been invisible all 3 games so far. I don't know what's going on, but they just cannot find. He cannot find his tight ends. Derrick Henry does look great, but the defense has gotten scary these last couple weeks. I can't lie.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but yeah, I think Josh Allen is a lot better, to be totally real. I've talked about this to many people. Josh Allen really should have been the MVP last year over Lamar Jackson. I will say that right now. I know it was a rough start to the season, but with how he pulled through, I really, I'm sorry if anybody in here is watching is a Ravens fan, but I have said it many times and I will say it again. I think Lamar Jackson is very overrated. He is all legs. I really feel that way.
Well, look, I mean, again, Jason, 3, 4 years ago, I would have gave you that point. But we look at the way Lamar Jackson developed as a passer last
Yep.
year. The guy won the MVP for a reason,
Yep.
and there's a reason why his team almost made the Super Bowl and why he was the MVP. Now, again, we can go back and have this conversation again, but our viewpoints won't make the change. Lamar was the MVP
True.
last year. So it's just mind-boggling to see why you would limit his passing game where he finally developed in that last year. You
Yep.
go back to an old, usual, crazy, rambunctious run style, and that's why they're 1-2. And
Yep.
if he threw more versus Vegas, they win the game.
Yep.
He caught a bad break versus Kansas City, but regardless, we're seeing this craziness again where it's run, 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 run. You bring in Derrick Henry for a reason. That's a great move. But Derrick Henry, his job is to run the ball. If Lamar Jackson's going to be a quarterback like the way he was last, have him run less, throw more, and you would think by bringing in Derrick Henry, Lamar would not have to run as much. For some reason, they're not getting that mindset.
Yep.
And with that in mind, you mentioned Andrews, likely Zay Flowers also. What's having them on this team as weapons around Lamar after a great MVP year last year because he threw the ball more? What's the point of having those guys there for? Andrews to block, sure, but Lively and Flowers for what? Comic relief,
Yeah.
for backup, for for a post game skit. What's your point?
Yeah.
So I just don't get it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, but happens even when they lost things, and Josh Allen looks a lot better right now despite that.
Yep.
So he has just been so fun to watch, Josh Allen. And again, it's early. It's only week 4. If we're talking a early MVP candidate
It's
this
Allen.
year,
Yeah.
Josh Allen for sure has to be the favorite.
Yeah. I will go to look. I agree that this is gonna be a Bills win. I actually think genuinely this is the honest truth. I know some people might be like, "And this," but I actually think the best thing they could have done is what they did, and it was getting Diggs away from Josh Allen. I really, really think he was just black cloud of energy in that locker room that just caused a ton of problems, a ton of arguments, and I think it is such a good thing that they got him out of there because I just think the tension was building for a while.
Well, you know what? Yeah, if you think about it now, yes. At the moment, you're saying, what the heck is going on here? But if you think about it now, again, only 3, 4 games into the season, it makes sense. And Buffalo went very heavy with their tight end attack. Dalton Kincaid was a phenomenal first round pick this past year.
Yep.
He and Josh Allen are gelling like butter. It's been a
Yeah.
great start for them. So you're seeing a great display of Josh Allen finding all these different receivers and tight ends. And you mentioned James Cook. That's how a team should actually manage their offense.
Yep.
A great right amount of passing, solid running back play, and Josh Allen's a guy to begin with who can scramble, not too much, but scramble enough, and still be the main quarterback he has to be by throwing the ball.
Yep. Completely agree. I think this is going to be an amazing Sunday night game. Uh,
Yeah.
that the Bills do end up winning. The next game we talked about how bad the Browns and Raiders game is, and I'm going to say this right now, and this is coming from me and you as two people who do not do any drugs, but there are not enough drugs in the world that could make me want to watch this game, and sadly, it is one of the two Monday Night Football games. We got Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans against uh, Tim Boyle and the Miami Dolphins. There is not enough drugs in the world that would have me willing to watch that game, but what do you got here?
So we've gone so low to begin Monday Night Football this week that we're getting a guy who puts mayo in his coffee and Tim Boyle, who couldn't throw a child 5 feet. This is going to be painful, Jason. And let's not forget, last year, this was a good game that the Dolphins blew with less than 3 minutes to go
Yes.
to what would have been probably clinching the division. And instead, they were a wild card. They got blown up by Kansas City.
Yeah.
Tennessee, if they don't win this game, have problems. If Tim Boyle wins this game for Miami, Will Levis should be exiled on a Mayo Island for the rest of his life.
Well, dude,
He
he's
should never
got.
talk to anybody again.
Dude, every week there's been one really idiotic turnover by Will Levis, so I think that might continue this week. That might continue.
Well, look, I mean, again, this is going to be painful, but what gets me, you lose Tua to injury. Now Skylar Thompson is hurt, but you signed Tyler Huntley to your practice squad. Why not play Tyler Huntley? Why are you going with Tim Boyle? I mean, do you just want the critic? Do you want the attention? Do you want the talk? Do you want Frank the Tank to blow up more times than once than he has already? I mean, the guy's as big as Florida. So, you know, this is something where, why are you doing this? For the Jets last year, they had no choice. Rodgers was done. Wilson stunk. Tim Boyle had to play. Fine.
Yep.
You have Tyler Huntley. Why not play him this week? You have nothing to lose by doing it.
Exactly.
But for some reason, that's the deal.
At least try to save your season, right? I mean, like.
Right. Well, look, this is a tough game. And I chose the Raiders last time out. But I look at the QB situation alone. A bad Will Levis is better than a decent Tim Boyle, no question about it. So I think Will Levis in Tennessee wins this game by the skin of their teeth. And if we look back at last year, different scenario, Tua was healthy. Dolphins were up by, 14, 17 points in the fourth quarter?
Pains me that in week 4 we're discussing if Tim Boyle or Will Levis is better.
Yeah. But again, last year with these two teams in Miami, the Dolphins were up by 14, 17 points?
Yep.
And they blew that game?
Yep.
Think about that. So.
No, I completely agree. I don't think.
I think Tennessee wins.
Yeah, I think Tennessee wins as well, and Miami starts falling further and further into the abyss.
Yeah.
Not much to say on this one. It is going to be an ugly, ugly game. But yeah, I could honestly see this being like a 10-6 game. I wouldn't be shocked.
That would be something. Or it could be a 20-0 game, and Tim Boyle's got 3 picks.
Sure. Well, I'm giving Miami with Jason Sanders 2 field goals. That's what I'm gonna be fair with and say. I just I'm gonna be at least reasonable on that and say that they get at least a field goal or 2. But no matter what, a really ugly game. Thank God.
Yeah.
The other Monday night game is good, by the way. So Alex, we move into the final game of the week to save ourselves from that ugly game. We got the surprisingly really good 3-0 Seattle Seahawks against the 2-1 Detroit Lions to close the week. What do you got here?
Well, look, we're going to have a good game. And thankfully, there's 2 games, I guess, that night, because that first game would put more people in the hospital than, my kidney stones. Yeah. So regardless, it would be painful if we did not have a doubleheader again for the second straight week.
Yep.
Seattle and Detroit played a great game last year. Seattle won in overtime by a field goal. So I think we're going to have a very close game between a Seattle team that's surprisingly very good at 3-0 and a Detroit team that's been good, but they've got several injuries, and one of their top DNs just got out for the season with a bad injury. So Detroit's shorthanded. That's for sure.
A couple
But the
injuries
Lions are,
actually. We got to keep in mind for Detroit. Laporta got carted off. We don't know his
yeah,
status. Um,
yeah.
St. Brown is clearly banged up. He's been limping like crazy these last 2 weeks, so we don't know what's going on with him. So there's a lot of
Well,
issues for Detroit
yeah.
right now.
Well, I mean, again, they've been hurt all across the board on offense and defense, and that could hamper their chances to win this game. I think it'll be a close game. Detroit will play full heart and soul. They'll give it their full effort. Don't get me wrong, but I think we're going to have a repeat of last year, where we could see a finale in overtime. We could see a 3 point difference. I think Seattle wins because Seattle is really good right now. They're surprising people, and this might be one of their first true challenges this year. But last year, they started strong. They beat Detroit in overtime. And the Lions, I think, were 2-0 or 3-0 entering that matchup last year. So I think we'll see a repeat of it. I think Seattle wins very closely. It'll be a close game. This game can go either way, like many of the other games we've talked about in this program. But from what we saw last year and what we've seen the first 3 weeks, Detroit's good. Seattle was just a tad better, and I think they'll improve the 4-0.
Yep. I completely agree. If there weren't health concerns for Detroit, I would probably go Detroit. But
Same here. Yeah.
there are a lot of concerns over there. We don't know Laporta's status. We don't know St. Brown's issue because he might be flying
Right.
out. He really might. A
Right.
lot of
Right.
injuries around there. And the Seahawks are getting healthier. They got Kenneth Walker back this week, so that solves another issue. Uh, Metcalf looks amazing. Geno looks good. Tyler Lockett a little MIA at times. I feel like Tyler Lockett's more of an all or nothing guy. I really feel that way. He's good, but he either has a great week or he's invisible. He's nowhere to be found. It's a weird thing with Tyler Lockett. Um, but yeah, I just overall I think right now they are a better team. You still see some of those Detroit Lion young mistakes from some of those players that could bite them in the ass on this one too. I'm gonna be honest.
Mhm.
And there's some stupid little things that they do out there, especially their defenders taking some idiotic penalties. And I hate to be blunt on it, but it is the truth, and it is a young player thing. But there are some mistakes coming from those young defenders that they have out there. So
Well, look, I mean, again, that could be a difference too, where some of their defense is banged up. One of their top DNs is done for the year. Discipline's a key, and if they're not disciplined, they're going to lose to Seattle.
yeah,
So again, we'll see what happens, but it should be a good game. I still take Seattle
yeah.
for sure.
I agree. Look, it's a good week 4. I would say it's definitely probably the worser of the weeks we've done so far. I don't think it's as solid just because you have some games in there that you would probably not want to watch or think about ever again by the time it's over. Like that Titans game, that Raiders game, a couple other games in there. But besides those bad games, I think it should be a fun week. Like I said, not on the level of the previous couple weeks, but week 4 looks like it's going to be a fun week, and we'll see. Hopefully, uh, for my Bengals, look, for anybody who might not know, if you're watching for the first time, I like both the Bengals and Giants. So I'm hoping to see the Giants upset the Cowboys. I'm hoping to see the Bengals avoid losing to Andy Dalton because that would be demoralizing for the Bengals. And hopefully for you guys pull off an upset against the Vikings, which would be a huge, huge win. But yeah, should be a great week 4. With all the upsets so far this season, anything's possible. Should be a lot of fun. I don't know if you have anything to add before we end this. Or...
Well, look, I mean, again, we'll see where it goes. I mean, you've got some great games, and then you've got games where I wouldn't let children watch it. So, uh, you know, we've got that mix, and there's always going to be games like that, especially as the season goes on. But no, I mean, it's a pretty solid lineup overall. Those hiccups there too play a factor, but we'll see what happens. It should be a good week, and by the time we come back, we'll see who wins and who does not, Jason.
Yep, completely agree. Thank you guys so much for watching our week 4 prediction podcast, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys are new here, drop a sub. If you guys like the video, leave a like. Also, leave a comment below with your guys' predictions for the week, guys. We would love to hear what you guys have to say. That is one thing, guys. I say it all the time, and I really mean it. I would love to hear you guys' opinions. We struggle to get people's reactions on this and opinions and their predictions. We would love to start getting that. So I appreciate you guys. We will see you guys next week for week 5. Just a reminder, guys, if you are somebody who is seeing this video and doesn't know anything about me, I stream every single day on Twitch. My Twitch is just GZRogue, GZROGUE. I hope to see you guys around there. Peace out and see you in the next one.